All right, folks, after two very entertaining games on the Tuesday schedule, welcome in, folks, to the WNBA 365 Network, your comprehensive home for all things WNBA and women's basketball. Joining you folks here for some post-game discussion for the first time this season. Here this evening on this May 23rd, 2017. Join the night, folks, in the Hangout by Crystal Thomas and Tanisha Stewart. Cal McClure joining you folks here from the Calamax Sports Studios here in San Diego. Shorty and Crystal, 2 games, 2-point wins, 2 very entertaining games on a very quiet Tuesday in the WNBA. Other than that, guys, how's it going?
Well, I'm doing fine. I don't know about Crystal.
No idea whatsoever. It looks like Crystal had some technical problems here. So here we've been involved with everything. Crystal, are you there? Can you hear us?
Whoa, yeah, that was weird. Sorry about that.
Can hear you.
Too busy deleting photos off the camera roll. With that, folks, as normal, as with any program here, of course, Facebook, Twitter, live chat box, as always, open for you folks this evening. So hit us up over on our Twitter accounts at WNBA365, at Calamac3, at ShortyMamba24, or at Pup1010, hashtag WNBA365. Find us on Facebook, facebook.com/WNBA365. Or you can join the live chat box by sending in your questions, comments, or concerns into the right corner of your screen, and I'll check on those during our program this evening. Shorty and Crystal, again, we had a 2-game schedule, and we had 2 very exciting finishes. One of them that just ended roughly 20 minutes ago or so from Phoenix, Arizona. The New York Liberty blew a second-half lead, but Epiphany Prince with the game-winning basket with just 4.5 seconds left in regulation. They knock off the Mercury at the final horn, basically 69-97. Leilani Mitchell's game-winning potential three-pointer was off the mark at the final buzzer. Shorty, as we said, 2 very exciting finishes, and this was probably one of the more epic ones in regards to how the Liberties, we kind of saw tonight, struck, somewhat, big lead early, lost their luster in the second half, but get bailed out almost at the final buzzer. Great game all around, though, between both clubs. Of course, the Mercury playing without Diana Taurasi tonight due to what we'll get to in our news segment here with her 1-game suspension. But Shorty, what do you make about this game? Honestly, a thriller to the better end for Phoenix. But hey, great game tonight, though. But what do you say about it?
Oh yeah, it was a very thrilling game. Prince came through in the clutch, big shot Prince to seal the victory for New York, but it was just a lot of back and forth. Oh, Phoenix, this was probably, I'd say, one of their worst games so far in this early season. I mean, they were bad. They were terrible from 3-point percentage. Only shot 15.8. My goodness. They were really missing Diana, even though she hasn't really been hot in the early going, but still they could have used her presence in this game because it was bad. But still, they put up a good fight, came back in the second half with the combination of BG and Leilani. Oh, and Yvonne Turner, my goodness. Turner came through. She was the unexpected heroine for Phoenix, but it just wasn't enough.
Crystal, I think for the Liberty, at least in this game so far, they're probably going to have to go back to the drawing board and polish up some mistakes they made in this ballgame. Honestly, they let a 15 or 10-point lead go by the wayside in the second half, as Todd alludes to in the chat box. They were outscored 27-7 over a 10-minute stretch in this game. They did score, though, the last 7 points of that run. But Phoenix got hot, though, in that third quarter, pretty much ran away with, ran New York over in that third quarter stretch. But again, Crystal, it comes down to the final buzzer, and as Shorty alluded to, at least for with the Liberty, Prince with the game winner. Tina Charles has a double-double to start off with this game tonight. Crystal, at least from the Liberty side of the spectrum, what do you see right or wrong from this team? Because obviously a good start, old second half start, game winner at the end, they get bailed out. But obviously, what maybe did you like or dislike from the Liberty in this game?
Okay, at first, can you guys hear me?
You're good for right now, yes.
Okay, yeah, sorry about that. I had technical issues. What I liked about the thing that I liked about New York is that they were very physical. They didn't really let Phoenix kind of scare them. there was times they kept taking it to Griner, even though they know she's long and alters a lot of shots. And you could just tell that Bill Laimbeer has them playing, that bad boys Detroit style of defense, and it worked a couple of times. I mean, they were able to do enough to keep Phoenix, like Shorty said, shooting terrible threes from the perimeter. I mean, Phoenix has never really been that great of a three-point shooting team, and this is where missing Diana and Duana Bonner hurts. I mean, we know Diana Taurasi, like Shorty alluded to, hasn't been shooting well. I mean, she's only shooting, 21% from, I think, the field in general this season.
Correct.
So, they obviously need a little bit of help in that end. I mean, it's it seems like Griner's going to have to be putting the whole team on her back, and I feel like with a season as far as this is, that can probably be deadly for Phoenix. But I mean, I like the way that New York just kind of took it to them. New York pretty much let them know that they had no fear in them, and it turned out for a good game up until like the last. I think like the third quarter is when Phoenix started going on a run, and they managed to keep the run down. They managed to win. That's all that matters. But I mean, it was an ugly victory.
Shorty, going to you about Phoenix at least, and Todd kind of points to two perhaps ill-advised shots late in the game that could have perhaps given Phoenix a boost or maybe even a W tonight. He alludes to the fact of Kayla George missing a game-tying three. He says probably not the right decision. Also says that Leilani Mitchell rushed a quick free with 25 seconds left. He said could have probably gone inside to Griner maybe to perhaps either tie, take the lead, what have you. But Shorty, even for Phoenix playing this game without Diana, for them getting down 15 and still mounting a comeback, as Todd also said, though, in regards to outscoring New York by 20 in a 10-minute span, I thought was very impressive of his team. But again, as we said, though, still some holes, though. Either, of course, missing D is one of them, and even as well as KT Bob, too, missing Duana Bonner and her presence, too, on the defensive end and also the three-point shooting. Was there still seems to be some gaps, some holes, some chinks in the armor here so far for PHX. But Shorty, I mean, in your mind, though, how much credit, though, does Phoenix get, I guess, in your mind, for at least coming back and nearly, getting this win tonight? All of it, of course, coming into a crashing end, at least, with them losing at the final buzzer, basically.
Yeah, well, they deserve a whole lot of credit. I mean, they still stayed in the fight even without DT and Duana, of course, out for the season. But I mean, they stayed in the fight. What happened with Phoenix, especially in the second half, is just that the reason why, they were shooting all those unnecessary quick shots was because New York had went into a zone. And Phoenix ran into problems. They couldn't beat the zone. And one way to beat the zone is to first move the ball around and then get, those open shots. They was getting opportunities. It's just that they couldn't knock them down. So that was their problem.
By the way, folks, in case you're wondering, according to the WNBA.com stat rat and the box scores, Phoenix shot 15.8% from beyond the arc. New York, not that much better, 37.5% from beyond the arc this evening. And again, the Liberty hang on to win at the final buzzer thanks to Epiphany Prince's game winner with 4.5 seconds left this evening. So, Crystal, back to Phoenix real quick. Now, again, as we mentioned, guys, we'll talk about the Taurasi suspension momentarily following our next game recap. But again, Crystal, you tweeted out, though, earlier on, that Phoenix, can't hang on to a lead, and when they don't hang on to the lead, they let it go, and it grows to a big deficit very, very quickly. But as we already brought up again, here they were able to, somewhat make adjustments in the locker room during halftime. They came out guns a-blazing, again, outscoring New York in a 10-minute stretch by 20 points. But again, still, as we said, some chinks in the armor and some problems to deal with, or at least still resolve and solve coming up soon. So, Crystal, in your mind, what do you think, or at least see out of Phoenix from this game, at least, in regards to what may lie ahead? Again, we've talked about some defense problems again, and poor three-point shooting. What do you think is perhaps their biggest adjustment that needs to be made right now at this point in time?
They still have a pretty tough time guarding the perimeter. That's been an issue there since last year. I think, well, you could say probably a little bit, but last year was when I really noticed it. They also have a small issue, with rebounding. They did pretty well today, but I think their biggest issue that they have to worry about is rebounding and guarding that perimeter and hopefully getting some more scoring options. You have Elani Mitchell, who is a streaky shooter, and when she's on, she's on. When she's off, she's off. It's today. I believe she was 0 for 5, if I saw my the stat book correctly. But they just have to get more people to score. I mean, you can't just rely on Brittany Griner every game, and you can't rely on Diana Taurasi every game. I mean, she's been kind of off this season. This is a bad start for her. Obviously, she wasn't there in this game, which might have been a big loss for them. But I mean, they just have to try to figure out if they can get some more ways to get the ball in the basket.
By the way, folks, Tina Charles and Epiphany Prince combined for 46 points, and Prince nailed the dagger tonight again, the game-winning basket with 4.5 seconds left in regulation. Liberty over the Mercury tonight from TSRA in downtown Phoenix, 69-67. The other game, guys, I was on ESPN2 this evening, another close game. The Minnesota Lynx hang on to beat the Connecticut Sun 80-78 this evening, led by their dominant center, Sylvia Fowles, 21-point game for her. Jasmine Thomas led the way for CT with 18 points. Crystal, you and I were talking about this right as the last game ended. We were sort of talking about things for tonight's show. And I brought up, though, that Connecticut has somewhat been the kryptonite in the past couple seasons for Minnesota, along with the Mystics kind of being their kryptonite the past couple of years in regards to, somewhat, we always talk about teams somewhat taking other teams lightly across all sports, not just in the W, perhaps. And Connecticut, for a team, as we said, Crystal, many times in here, a team that's going to take their punches this year. For a team that young to hold leads at various points in this game, I thought they played a very, very good game. Of course, on the wrong end, wrong end of it on the in the win-loss column. But I thought this was another fantastic game, though, and especially for Connecticut, Crystal. First of all, Crystal, first question to you: what can a game like this for a team like Connecticut, again, very young, who's somewhat, has not been, in the playoff mix the past couple years, what can a game like this, not result, but a game like this where you hung in there with the WNBA finalists and 3-time champs the past couple of years? What can a game like this do for this, very young core of talent for the Sun right now going forward and throughout the remainder of the season?
You know what? Me and Shorty was actually talking about this Connecticut team earlier. I think Connecticut is going to be a team that's going to be a problem for a lot of teams. I mean, it just seems like they match up well. They're a young team. They're quick. They're fast. They have a lot of, I wouldn't say a lot of scoring options, but they have different scoring options. You don't have to just have like Alex Bentley or Jasmine Thomas have to score. Jonquil Jones gets down there and does she has to do. Morgan Tuck as well. And with the addition of Danielle Adams, I mean, I feel like this team could be a team that just comes up under the radar. I think for them, you don't really like moral victories. I mean, as a team, especially a team that's, what are they, 0-3 now, I believe. You don't want a moral victory. You want an actual victory. But for them, they can just look at it and say, okay, we play them again in like 3-4 days. We know we have to do the same thing but better. I mean, there was a point where they were just running up and down the floor with Minnesota because Minnesota's the older team. So I've noticed a trend where if they get a team that can run them up and down and kind of just compete that way, then it seems like you could beat them. But I think for Connecticut, I mean, they should be happy for what they did. Like I said, I doubt they won a moral victory, but they should be happy that they played them well enough to only lose by 2 points. And I honestly think they would have won that game if that little mishap at the end didn't happen. I mean, I'm not sure exactly what play that was. I don't know if that was the play. I doubt that's what Kurt Miller drew up. But I think Connecticut could be a playoff team. I mean, obviously they won't be a high seed, but I wouldn't be surprised if they found their way in there this year.
Shorty, in regards to Connecticut once more, again, they do fall to 0-3, but as Top Mints alluded to, he said he has noticed that the Sun are losing, but they're losing very close games, though, and that's somewhat been their trend this season for the most part. Again, they lose by 2 this evening. He does, though, say that he's a little concerned, and he is somewhat questioning what Kurt Miller is doing right now for his team. Shorty, in regards to CT, again, to kind of bank off Crystal's point, but I guess what's your thoughts about, what a game like this could do for a young team facing a team that, of course, has been, the cream of the crop of the WNBA for the past couple of years?
Overall, as it was previously stated, I'm sure Connecticut is not into moral victories, but I think that they'll be overall, satisfied with the performance they put on today because this was a really, really, really close game. And for an older squad like Minnesota, they struggle against teams with young and fresher legs. Look at Dallas. That was a close matchup for them. And then again tonight with the young and talented legs of Connecticut, I mean, they was just on point with Minnesota defensively and offensively. Connecticut was solid. What they had 14 assists on their first 16 field goals. That is pure efficiency. And also they did well, from the 3-point line, shot 50%, even though Minnesota did a little better at 58%. But just overall, I mean, they had a solid outing, and it was young, dumb rookie mistakes by the stretch. Well, not even rookies, but just young and somewhat inexperienced mistakes that cost them the game down the stretch.
Crystal, the U now, and about the Lynx again, they now extend a winning streak for the month of May to, I believe, 20-plus games. It's some very insane stat that they've not lost a game in the month of May since May of 2011. That's that's almost 6 straight years of not losing in one designated month of the year. And again, like we all have said, though, here is, it kind of seems like, guys, that these young teams like a Dallas or a Connecticut or maybe even a San Antonio later in the year, guys, that they somewhat find a way. Or yes, even Seattle, they find a way, guys, to somehow, some way, really expose this older team in Minnesota. Now, again, the Lynx get the victory. Crystal, in regards to the Lynx, is there really much else to say about how well Sylvia Fowles has played these 3 or 4 games in Minnesota? I mean, she's been in our Player of the Week conversation on Twitter the past couple of days, 2 weeks in a row. And really, it's somewhat been, Sylvia and kind of like everyone else now. I mean, it's not really, set on one player. It's somewhat been, it's been between Sil one night, and then Moan making a buzzer beater a couple nights, or a big game from Maya. Crystal, in regards to the Lynx, somewhat, maybe has like their team identity somewhat maybe changed, I think, this year in regards to how it's been a different player almost every game so far, contributing in big ways for Minnesota so far this season.
I don't know if it's changed that much. I'm just gonna say it's people getting older. I mean, like you said, one night it's Maya, who's still in her prime. One night it's Sylvia. We can pretty much kind of tell in these upcoming years and seasons, whose team is going to be. I mean, Maya Moore's still young, so it's always going to be her team. When Waylon and Simone go, but you can kind of tell. You can kind of see which way it's going. I mean, there's days where Waylon doesn't score until the third quarter, or she may not score as much. Or Simone Augustus, she had a big game for them when she hit that buzzer beater. I think that was I don't think she really scored that much in that game either. I think that shot was one of her main points in that game. But I mean, I just think honestly the team's just getting old. I mean, Minnesota's an older team. I think. Aren't they the oldest team in the league, or one of the oldest teams in the league, if I remember that correctly?
It's the oldest.
Yeah, they're the oldest team in the league now. So it's after a while, they're going to have to start really using their draft picks. They're going to have to start really trying to rebuild the team after people that's leaving. Because it seems as now they're just continuing who they have. And, I mean, I don't know if Simone Augustus's legs can hold up that much longer. So eventually you're going to have to start drafting and looking for replacements for players like that. But I just think right now, I mean, they're getting old. Yeah, they're 4-0 right now, which is good. Minnesota's always going to be a contender, but with a team like that and the way that they're playing, I mean, I feel like eventually it's gonna be kind of hard for them down the stretch. But I mean, they're still going to be a good team. That's Minnesota. You can't count them out.
Shorty, what do you think about Minnesota again? This is 20-plus games. I forget the exact number, but again, over 20 straight wins in 1 month. Again, this goes back to May 2011. I mean, and once more, you're seeing Minnesota again, much like they had the past couple years, guys, off to a really good start, and again, and perhaps not in usual fashion of blowing teams up, but again, hanging on and winning those very gritty wire-to-wire, end-to-end games so far, and seeing Minnesota so far, and I think more with Sylvia Fowles, though, Shorty. I mean, she's been in our network Player of the Week poll question the past 2 weeks and has gotten, perhaps not the love she deserves for how well she's played for Minnesota. But I guess in regards to that, Shorty, what do you believe, though, about the Lynx so far through 4 games?
they're just, showing that, they're a solid and savvy veteran team. They know what to do in tough situations. Like we, talked about close games against Dallas and now Connecticut. I mean, they just use their veteran experience. So their experience is always going to, be on their side. They know what to do in tough situations, and that's how they were able to pull out a victory tonight.
Shorty, we'll stay with you. One quick comment from Todd in the chat box. He just wants to ask real quick. He's wondering, why do we think Daniel Adams only got paid $1.39 in playing time this evening? He says, would assume Kurt Miller thought she could not work in a up-tempo game against Minnesota. Shorty, what do you think about perhaps why Kurt didn't perhaps go to D. Adams more often in this game other than maybe less than 2 minutes of game action tonight? What do you think?
Well, I'm not really sure per se, but just from looking at how she is being used, I mean, she certainly has a diminished role on this Connecticut team, unlike in San Antonio, where she was fully integrated into the offense. But it seems like her role with Connecticut is just being a spot up 3-point shooter. So when when your only role is just to come in and shoot threes, I mean, there's really nothing else beyond what she's supposed to provide for the team. So that's probably the, ends all be all to DA in Connecticut. It's just being a spot up 3-point shooter.
And Crystal, what do you think? I mean, obviously, you're going to play your starters, heavier minutes, but perhaps what are your thoughts about perhaps why Miller only looked to play Adams roughly just less than 2 minutes of action tonight, perhaps? What do you think?
Well, I agree with what Shorty said, but I also think it's because she's a defensive liability. She can't move her feet that well. She'll get in the game, and we saw it with Indy. I mean, you seen it tonight too, but you saw it in the Indy game. Like she had like 3 fouls in less than 5 minutes. It's because she can't really move her feet that well. And if I've always learned, and this is why I love defense, but I've always learned, if you're a defensive liability and against a team like Minnesota, especially, who's a really good team, especially if you get them on the line, you really don't want to risk it. I mean, the game was already too close to what it was. I mean, yes, she came in and hit the shots that she took, but I think Kurt kind of realized how the game was going, how the game was being played out, and that's what a good coach does. You don't want your player to be exploited. You kind of want to put them in the best situation. And I guess he realized, having Danielle on the floor is not good at this moment, because I think she fouled as soon as she hit the shot too. Like I think on the other end she fouled, and you can't really have that against a team like Minnesota. But I think she will eventually work her way back into more games, and because I mean she lights it up. I mean, just goes amazing from the 3-point shot.
All right, guys. Again, folks, to reiterate your final scores again tonight, the Lynx hang on to beat the Sun 80-78, and the New York Liberty, thanks to a Epiphany Prince buzzer beater, beat the Phoenix Mercury tonight from Phoenix by the final score of 69-67. Guys, a couple news stories real quick again. Now, again, folks, the Mercury tonight were without Diana Taurasi, as we had brought up earlier on. Again, DT was suspended for tonight's game after having her technical foul against the Stars rescinded for a 1-game suspension after elbowing and forearming, I should say, Stars forward Dearica Hamby in the back of the head during the Mercury Stars game in San Antonio over the weekend. Obviously, Shorty, this somewhat was a bit of an uproar that the Mercury as a whole were not very excited about the call. Of course, DT was assigned a tech for the incident, then had the flagrant 2 rescinded for the 1-game suspension. Shorty, what do you make about the incident occurring and also about the suspension in your mind as well?
Well, of course, the Mercury organization is going to be biased, for DT, but no, on the real. I mean, of course they're going to be biased, but she was warranted of that suspension because regardless of who you are and what your reputation is in the league, I mean, that was unnecessary contact. That was an unnecessary play. That didn't have to happen. And DT is just too great to, make petty plays like that, and that had no business happening. So she got what she deserved, and just make better decisions for the future.
Crystal, I think the biggest reason why the tech was rescinded and was up here to a flagrant 2 was we're talking about a shot to the head, and we know nowadays in 2017 in all sports, every facet, teams and leagues are now taking extra precautions now in regards to what happens when players get hit in the head, either with elbows, get hit by pitches in baseball or what have you now with new concussion protocol, which is, I think, which is probably in my opinion, that is the reason why the tech was rescinded and then the flagrant 2 was given. Was we're talking about, shots to the head, and we know what we've seen, guys, in other sports with head injuries in many recent years in regards to, either former players committing suicide from either concussion-related injuries. So, Crystal, do you perhaps believe that perhaps since it was a shot to the head, that's why the flagrant was handed down and also a suspension was handed down as well?
No doubt about it, but I mean, I don't think that's the only reason. I mean, they do have a rule, anything that's above the head, even if it's an accident, anything that's, looks like it's above the head is obviously going to be a flagrant too. They only gave her what was it, a tech that game, if I remember?
They gave her a tech, then reviewed it later on, and then after the game was over, then they rescinded it to a flagrant 2.
Yeah, see, that was the thing. It should have been a flagrant 2 and an ejection anyway. And I think that's kind of the reason why they went back and looked at it. I guess the referees realized, like, okay, yeah, we made a mistake. I mean, luckily for Derica, there was no major injury or anything like that. I mean, the blow obviously didn't look hard enough to hurt her, but still, you can't just, blatantly take a forearm and hit somebody in the back of the head with that. I mean, what if Derica did get hurt? What if she did go down, and not only would that have been a suspension, it probably would have been some type of fine or something. You can't do that, especially like Shirley's saying. I mean, DT is such a great player. It's already sad that she has a reputation for technical fouls anyway, and I don't want to see that. I think it was the right call. I mean, obviously Phoenix is going to think it isn't, but imagine if the table was turned and Mo Curry would have did that to Diana Taurasi, then it would have been a different story. So I think they did well with it, and I'm glad nobody got hurt.
With that, guys, Todd chimes in just to say real quick, perhaps the one-game suspension was maybe beneficial for her for a mental break to regroup. They have a tough stretch on the road next week, and she only has 6 made field goals in her first 3 games played. So presumably tonight's off night for her was maybe a mental break. But again, folks, DT was suspended for the night's game due to the flagrant 2 foul being, or the technical foul that she did receive being rescinded to a flagrant 2 and serving her one-game suspension due to a forearm to the back of the head of Stars forward De'Erica Hamby over the weekend. Also, guys, some injury news real quick concerning Odyssey Sims. Now, Crystal and I were at the game on Friday when Sims went down. Non-contact, appeared to roll a knee. It's turned out, guys, it is a sprained ankle. She's listed as day-to-day and will not take part in Wednesday's game for the Sparks in Indiana when they face the Fever tomorrow night at 4 o'clock Pacific, 7 o'clock Eastern. Day-to-day, so not a whole lot else to report. But, Crystal, we were at the game, and obviously kind of a very obviously, we hate non-contact injuries. Those are probably the worst ones to see when you can see it without anyone blocking your view. And obviously, it looked like it could have been pretty serious. But obviously, after the game, Odyssey was chatting with fans on Instagram. Not a whole lot of too much concern, but of course, with an injury this early in the year, no need to rush back. But Crystal, what did you make about the injury and also the news coming out again? She's not on the road trip for at least right now, and she will not play tomorrow, day-to-day with that sprained ankle.
When I first seen it, I really didn't know what to make of it. I just saw her go down. I really didn't, see the whole thing of what happened. I just knew it was a non-contact injury. But to hear that it's an ankle, I mean, you don't want to see anyone get hurt. But to hear that it's an ankle is actually a little relieving, I guess, especially for the Sparks as a team. Because whenever they get her back, defensively, she's going to make a big impact. And offensively as well. I mean, she's come off the bench and is giving LA some good minutes. So I think I think a lot of fans can sigh a little bit of relief and know that Odyssey will be back soon. We don't know when, but I don't think she should rush back, in all honesty. I think she should take as much time as she needs to heal the ankle up and then come back to it.
Shorty, again, not a big problem for the Sparks, and they do start a 3-game or 4-game road trip coming up here through Indiana and through parts of the East Coast coming up, starting up as early as tomorrow night when they do play the Fever in Indianapolis tomorrow. So again, Shorty, probably not a whole great deal of concern. If it was maybe an ACL, of course, you're talking about, oh, great, the year's over. Perhaps the season may be over. Obviously, with it being 3 games and it being an ankle, no need to really, worry about it, I guess. But obviously, it was a bit alarming, though, to see another non-contact injury for a player to go down in the heat. Shorty, what do you make about the news again about Sims not playing at least tomorrow again in his day-to-day with that sprained ankle for LA?
Yeah, it was a little alarming. When it initially happened, a lot of people thought that it was a knee injury of some sort But when we found out, it was a left ankle strain, then we were sort of, relieved then because rather the ankle than the knee. But yeah, she's listed as day to day. So, and she was, talking afterwards. So it's good that, she was still lively and meaning that, the injury didn't hurt her too much or she isn't, suffering any type of, big pain from it that much. But, it's good that she'll be out for the game. She doesn't have to rush back. I mean, LA has a good amount of weapons this year. I mean, We's the beast. We couldn't go through the show without not bringing up Sydney Weiss, man. 22 points.
And
6
the
of them
best
on threes.
the best part about that is, y'all, fun fact, Sydney Weiss can actually beatbox. That was like the best part of figuring that out. Like, she actually busted a beatbox back there, but
And she can hit a few high notes.
Weiss the beast. Weiss the beast, Shorty. I like Weiss side, the best side, better than that one. But well, that one's pretty good though. But we'll move on, guys. One other injury, real quick, Shorty. I don't mean to cut you off, guys, off, but as well, another scary injury that occurred on Sunday was Tiffany Hayes, the Atlanta Dream, who was carried off the court, guys, after the Dreams lost to Chicago on Sunday. Was carried off, literally Paul Pierce-esque type, carried off the floor, but also ruled a sprained ankle. She was icing the ankle in the locker room after the game on Sunday. So obviously, Shorty, that injury, if that injury would have been way more severe for Atlanta, their season may have gone down the drain because you're talking about playing pretty much 32 or 30 plus more games without Angel, and now without Tiffany Hayes, you're in perhaps a world of trouble. But thankfully, and the good news again, Shorty, her ankle is also only sprained, and she'll probably be going within the next couple of games with Shorty. In your mind, though, if the injury perhaps for Tip was way worse maybe than the ankle, what would you have probably thought about ATL's season for this year?
And initially for hers too, I thought hers was actually an Achilles. I was like, whew, I was clutching my pearls. I thought it was almost over for her. I was like,
pearls.
My goodness, but good thing that she is listed as day to day too. But I mean, if it was anything worse for Hayes, I mean, and if her season would have been over, my goodness. I mean, look, they're solid right now, at least in the regular season without Angel, so they can show so far that they can manage. But, without Tiffany Hayes, they would have been even worse trouble than what they are, because she's pretty much now, minus Angel, at least 80% of the offense. So they're going to need her, and she might be a game time decision too for Saturday when they play against Los Angeles. So we'll see how Tip, will fare on into Saturday.
So, Crystal, again, another very scary incident once more again. I mean, you got guys, it's a bad injury if you see a player have to be literally firemen carried off the floor. And again, mercifully, thankfully, it's only a sprained ankle once more for Tip. But Crystal, would you have probably, maybe agreed in regards that, if she goes down along with the missing Angel, that Atlanta would have been in a very, very dark place for the remainder of the season, perhaps?
Oh, man. It you know what? They would have been, and it did look bad. I mean, the way that her foot bent, it did not look like a standard ankle. It looked like an Achilles. I've sprained my Achilles before, and it's not fun. Like, it's probably one of the worst pains. I mean, you could feel it when you wake up. You could feel it when you walk. So thankfully, it was just an ankle. In the words of Shorty, who probably got it from her grandmother, I would have clutched my pearls too. I would have clutched all my pearls because, you like I said, you don't want to see anyone get injured. It doesn't matter if it's a favorite of yours or a non-favorite. I mean, injuries suck either way, and that's time off from the team. That's time off from their livelihood. So I'm glad that she'll be okay. And again, I don't feel she should rush back. There's still a lot of season left. Get healthy and take the time and hopefully be better the next time she plays.
So again, folks, both Odyssey Sims and Tiffany Hayes, Sims for LA and Hayes for ATL, both suffered sprained ankles over the weekend. They are listed as day-to-day again, but Sims is not going to be playing for the Sparks tomorrow in Indy. And Todd says, hopefully she'll be good to go when the Sparks play New York on the second game of their 3-game East Coast road trip to make their first first road trip of the year, I should say, after playing the first 2 games at home. One quick comment from Michael Driver. Mike says, nice to see that Dallas and the Stars were on Twitter. Kelsey Plum getting some pub. Good for her in the league, and hopefully we'll see Kelsey on the floor sometime soon. Of course, that ankle injury still bothering her at this point in time. With that, guys, we're going to move now to one of the games tomorrow on the schedule. And, of course, guys, one that, of course, has gotten a lot of media attention in the Chicago area. Of course, guys, this will mark the first time that Elena Deladon will play against her former squad in Chicago. Much to the dismay, guys, of our good buddy from FanRag Sports, Eric Nimchok, who is way over this, who's been over this issue since we were last on the air before our hiatus to take time off, guys. And Crystal, we were talking about this before the program too, and we'll go to you on this one. Obviously, the Chicago Tribune put out a pretty interesting article, somewhat to, as we kind of talked about, or at least what you had said in your, in your own words, to kind of protect Deladon's image so far, of the superstar player. But of course, guys, you got to talk to anyone in that Chicago locker room. They're like, can we stop making this about EDD? Or even in Tamara Young's case, guys, they'll just walk out of the locker room. Crystal, in your mind, though, what do you think, what's your overall thoughts on this, off the floor issue again, where more so you're seeing newspapers and other, and pretty much, many media outlets, really hype up this matchup for really, Crystal, for no real good reason other than the fact that the players on Chicago said enough is enough about talking about her.
They're just trying to, that's the media. Sometimes the media is trying to, they're trying to hype it up, but I feel like they're actually trying to bring more drama to the situation. I think a lot of the players are fed up with it. I think a lot of the higher ups are fed up with it. Just let it go. Just let it be about basketball, and don't let it be about a single person. I mean, the Chicago players, they just want to focus on their season, focus on the team, focus on who they have now. They don't want to focus on the past. They don't want to, they don't want to put energy into a player that's not their own. So I feel like the media should probably just stop asking them that question or asking them about her and start just asking about the game in general.
Shorty, Kathy Pondexter, Cheyenne Parker, and Tamara Young just said it best. I think Cap said it best, though, was, we played, nearly half the season. They played 16 games without EDD last season when she was battling her back problem, her Lyme disease, reoccurring, and then the thumb injury in the postseason. So Shorty, Cap's like, we've done this before, so why does it have to become a bigger talking point now when she's on a different team playing us for the first time all season? And I think as well, Shorty, that it is. This is kind of, one of those touchy subjects, at least if you're a Chicago Sky fan, maybe, but more so, definitely if you're a player, Shorty, you've got to be sick and tired of having her name, thrown into the mix when she's not even a part of your ball club now. I mean, yeah, it's going to be fun to play here, on a opposed team as opposed to beating her up in practice. Now get to beat her up during the course of the game. But Shorty, what do you think about, how this matchup has been, very, very, for no reason, really, the fourth game or third game of the season for both teams, hyped up for really no real good reason?
Well, I think, they're hyping it up because of the publicity that came along, during the initial trade in the first place. EDD headed to Washington. So they just want to build on that and, hyping it up, creating a storyline of EDD going back to Chicago, the place she demanded a trade from. But, that's just the thing that goes down in basketball. Reporters, they're messy at times. They want to know some tea. So they're going to ask they're going to ask all the players, and coaches, even coaches that no longer coach for Chicago. They're also harassing Pokey Chapman, asking her, about her time in Chicago and what went down or whatever the case may be. So sadly for the Chicago players, it's just going to be a thing that they're going to have to deal with all season because reporters want the story and they want to know what went down between Delle Donne in Chicago that ultimately led her to asking for a trade.
Guys, Todd brings up a great question. Crystal, you and I experienced it firsthand during pregame introductions. What kind of reaction do you believe Elena does get during starting lineup intros at Allstate tomorrow morning?
That is a good question. I know EDD's situation is a lot similar than KT's.
Crystal, as a reminder, there were boos amongst the 12,000 people.
Not many, though. Not many. I think out of everybody that cheered, you could only hear like a few boos. It was a lot more cheers than boos. Like it was very receptive. That's half of the reason why KT cried. She actually did an interview about it. She wasn't sure how a lot of fans would receive her, but it was actually a really good reception. I mean, it was great. There was way more cheers than boos, but I know with the situation being different,
yes,
I think through TV, because if you had to watch the Sparks game, I don't think you heard any boos on TV at all.
No.
But with this game being on TV, you might hear some boos, but at the same time, I believe you're going to hear cheers too, because you know that was once upon a time their franchise player. That was their, to them that was their Maya Moore. So I would like to think it would be probably mixed, but I don't know. I mean, I have no idea.
Shorty, what do you think? I mean, now, obviously, Crystal was talking about Christy Tolliver getting her ring, guys, which was a very great, amazing reception for her, and there wasn't any boos. I was referring more, Crystal, to the boos that were heard that were directed towards Delle Donne during introductions.
Oh.
Plenty of them.
Oh, yeah. I heard those, too.
Shorty, though, I mean, there is kind of two sides to this coin here, though, in regards to what fans will do. Now, obviously, I mean, you can look at it either through, like what Chris said, there's going to be some cheers, of course, because, like she said, this was Chicago's superstar player for that time there. But then there is going to be those fans, though, that will boo in regards to that, because, Shorty, as we look back on it, this Chicago team had two superstar players demand their way out of Chicago within a very small window of time between Fowles leaving to go to Minnesota and then EDD this offseason. Shorty, what do you believe is going to be Delle Donne's reception? Is it going to be half and half? Is it going to be, more cheers or more boos? What do you think, perhaps? What do you think and why?
I think there are going to be some cheers, but overall boos. And only because, I mean, we can't fully compare the KT situation to Delle Donne's situation. Yeah. I mean, KT decided to leave, and she was beloved by almost everyone in Los Angeles. But she was, a player. She was a role player.
Player.
As opposed to Delle Donne, who was a franchise star. So you can't really compare the two. If you wanted a real comparison, then you would perhaps, just for example, if Candace Parker was to, leave, then that would be somewhat of an equal, reception, as opposed to EDD and Christy, who was a role player. EDD was a franchise player that demanded a trade. So I think we will be hearing more boos initially.
Guys, Todd does have a couple of points which to bring up. He says, in regards to that, he said he, along with us, did not agree with her demanding the trade out of Chicago. He says, felt she should have stayed back and shown leadership to help Amber Stocks be successful. For him, Delle Donne's legacy in the WNBA would have not pulled a KD, but to be the face of the sky and help Amber and her staff get that elusive title Chicago has yet to get it, though. Even though, guys, she got them there in 2014 against, perhaps one of the greatest teams of all time on the Mercury, who won 29 games that season. But again, she got there battling that back problem and everything else included. And also, Todd says perhaps a way for the Chicago media to help drive up ticket sales for the first 3 games. But also, guys, I think that the other problem here, though, with this is whoever the brainiac was that scheduled this game at 12:30 Eastern, 9:30 a.m. Pacific time, and 11:30 in the morning over in Chicago, guys. It's also perhaps one other talking point maybe is, maybe could have gotten a better television audience or at least a League Pass audience maybe if the start time was at 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock local time. Shorty, do you perhaps think that was also maybe one other potential maybe reason why this matchup was hyped up too was because they know that no one's going to watch the games. It's going to be on at, lunchtime on the East Coast and breakfast time over here for us West Coasters.
Well, we got to remember all schedules are completed, prior to free agency, if I can recall. So when they was creating this matchup, I don't think, anyone thought of EDD demanding the trade and wanting to leave. So, schedules already created before, trades and stuff that went down.
Crystal, what do you think about this? Now, again, I know that there will be, that there's a couple 9 o'clock Pacific time games this week due to whatever the reason may be. But Crystal, I know that we can't predict the future. We're not Nostradamus here. We don't have a crystal ball in front of us. But Crystal, what do you think though about perhaps the attendance for this game, knowing that this is going to be a Wednesday afternoon matinee, 11:30 Central Time, and again, it's going to be on at 9:30 during Let's Make a Deal over here on CBS. It's going to be on during daytime television here on the West Coast. Crystal, do you perhaps think that perhaps maybe start time could also have been an issue too for this matchup, maybe, or no? What do you think?
Well, if it wasn't camp day, because it's a camp day game, which is why it starts so early. But I mean, if it wasn't, like you said, we don't know. We didn't know who was going to be on which team or what was going to be where. But I mean, I guess since it's camp day, that's the best time they could do it. They don't really want the kids out that late. I mean, that's all I gotta really say. I mean, I don't think they really knew. Like we said, they didn't know that EDD would, be in Washington a year later. So I'm not really gonna hold that against them. But it's camp day, and most camp day games start early, so I'm not really gonna blame that one on them.
Crystal, get ready for the camp day in LA. I mean, I went to the one last year against ATL, and me and my two friends had a very fun time just watching the kids get into it. And Todd is right. Said it must have been a camp day long ago determined, but he says probably will be a larger crowd, truthfully, for Chicago, of course, as they've had some problems, of course, with their attendance, as much as everyone else has too so far this season. With that, guys, moving on now to the second week of our WNBA 365 Network Player of the Week Twitter poll questions. Guys, again, we pose a poll question to you folks every Sunday following the last game, giving you 4 players of who we think had very good weeks, and we let you folks vote for a whole 24 hours, and we rack up those final votes. Guys, it was really no questions asked here. 48% of our viewers and followers picked Jewel Lloyd of Seattle Storm, guys, who put up a combined total of 53 points and 2 wins over both Indy and Washington. Also is the league leader right now in points per game at 26 even. Shorty, 2 polls, and this one was by far the one that was not even close. This week, next closest, I believe, was Brittany Griner at 21% of the vote. Shorty, Jewel Lloyd is perhaps, and I know Crystal hates when they do the race for MVP after 1 week of the season, but right now, Shorty, not much else you can say about Jewel Lloyd. She's been red hot through all 3 or 4 games. She's have played, and again, league leader in points per game, and again, put up 53 combined in just 2 games over the Fever and Mystics. Shorty, I think the voters definitely got that one right because Jewel has been in fuego through 3 games or 4 games so far. What's your overall thoughts, and who did you vote for our player of the week this week?
I'm not surprised that they picked Lloyd. I mean, since the start of the season, I mean, she's been spectacular. Even in their long loss to LA so far, I mean, she was spectacular in that game. So I'm not surprised that they would pick Lloyd. I mean, in their last game, she was so exciting. I mean, just the theatrics, going up for her signature. She's like one of the only players so far that has her own signature play with the Julie Oop, those alley oops, her own signature alley oops that she be converting on. I mean, it's a sight to see. And also she crossed Hill, so she deserves to win that poll after pulling the sick crossover over Taylor Hill. But I mean, like I said, once again, she had a solid week and she deserved it. Overall, actually, for me, it was between Griner and Fouls. The big girls in the middle, just dominating. Both had double doubles throughout the week. Griner had actually her. You know what? It was surprising to find out that her 32-10 game was her first 30-point game of her career. Just how dominant she is, you would think that she dropped 30 every night, but that was her first. And then Fowles just been a monster, dropping nearly double doubles in all of the games that the Lynx have played so far. So for me, it was in between Griner and Fowles, but not surprised that Lloyd won the poll.
Crystal, Crystal, I voted for Brittany Griner too because, career high points for her, 10 rebounds. Obviously that's a pretty eye-catching stat. But when Jewell Loyd drops 53 points in 2 games and is the league leader in points per game at 26 flat right now and leads her team at 2 victories, that, of course, also stands out. And, again, she got 48%. Nearly half of the voters picked Jewell Loyd in the poll this week. Crystal, what did you think about the poll this week, and who'd you vote for?
I thought the poll was cool. I mean, I voted for Jewell Loyd, obviously. I mean, that girl's a monster. I think what really did it was just there was I think for the first quarter she didn't miss a shot, and then she was just so efficient. And then that crossover in Taylor Hill, I think that's what really made me just go, yeah, that girl deserves to get that vote for me. But I mean, she's just entertaining to watch. I mean, if she's not an all-star this year, I don't know. I don't know what I'm gonna do, but I mean, she deserves to be an all-star this year, just in every way and every right. She's amazing. Like she single-handedly she gets better every year she's been in the league. Like this chick is definitely gonna be a star.
By the way, guys, one footnote: Jewell Loyd scored her 1,000th point of her career already in the win on Sunday versus the Mystics. But again, Jewell Loyd, 40% of the votes, folks, is your Week 2 WNBA 365 Network Player of the Week. Your final results, folks, by the way, Jewell Loyd, 48% of the vote. Brittany Griner, 21%. Sylvia Fowles had 20%. And Elena Delle Donne had her jersey number, 11% of the vote for Week 2's poll question. Crystal, we'll go back to you real quick. One question from Todd. He's asking, do you believe Jewell Loyd is good enough that she can lift the Storm to the next level, which in his mind means a championship contender along with the likes of perhaps the Mystics, Liberty, Sparks, and the Lynx? What do you think?
Was the question was, do I think they could be a contender?
Could Lloyd, he's asking, is Lloyd good enough to lift Seattle to the next level, a la being a championship contender?
A couple of those teams in there blew me for a loop, but I don't. Not by herself. I don't think so. I mean, I don't think anyone can really do it by themselves. I mean, if they could find the right piece for her. I mean, her and Breanna Stewart, when Breanna Stewart is actually on, I know she's been kind of off for a little bit, but I think her and Breanna Stewart are the future of that team, definitely. Doing it by herself, no. I feel like that's going to be a little hard. I mean, we all saw what happened when Tina Charles was pretty much putting the team on her back a few years ago. You get burned out, especially during the most important time that you need to. But I mean, they'll definitely be in the playoffs, no doubt about it. But I think I think calling them a contender with a few of those other teams, I don't know if I'd call those teams contenders either, but I don't know if they could be a contender yet. Maybe down the future, definitely, but not by themselves.
So again, Shorty, Todd's asking, do you believe that Jewell Loyd is capable enough to lift Seattle to that next level, which means championship contender alongside Washington, New York, LA, and Minnesota in your mind?
I think when you frame it, I think she can be a leader, that can potentially lead them to, the playoffs and to be a team that contend. But the team is still pretty young. They're still on the younger side. And with Bird, on her way out, we're not sure, how long she has in this league, but just Bird is their emotional leader. I mean, she's everything. She is the general on the floor. She set the offense. And you saw what happened in that first game when she was out. Lloyd was on fire, but the team was just discombobulated. They was all over the place. So I do think Lloyd has potential, but, they're just going to need a big effort from everyone else, especially Stewie.
And it was great, though, when Sue did come back, that the turnovers had gone down from 23 to 11 in just a one-game stretch real quick. Couple comments, guys. Michael Driver says Jewell has been balling, but he did like how Elena Beard had some shutdown D on her in the first game. It was nice to see the KG vet on her. Todd just wanted to clean up. He said he meant Seattle's an upper-level team, guys, not saying Washington and New York are on LA or Minnesota's level. So I think just perhaps a little confusion there, but in regards to that. But again, folks, Jewel Lloyd, your week 2 WNBA 365 Network Player of the Week. Check back, folks, on Sunday night for the next poll that again will run. And again, we'll have those results for you on Monday night following the conclusion of the poll at about 9:30 or 10 o'clock local time here on Monday, on Memorial Day Monday coming up here on the 29th. With that, guys, 2 games of note on the Wednesday schedule. 1 morning game, 1 evening game. And, guys, to clean up here real quick, the Washington-Chicago game, guys, will be on NBA TV. That's the first game we'll go to and again, we'll get your picks. And, again, we're doing this to keep tabs here. So, again, we'll see who has the better record at the end of the season. Shorty, to you, Washington or Chicago? Who you got?
This is an interesting one, but I'm going with Washington. Even though so far their road trip hasn't been kind to them, the problem with Chicago is that they have trouble somewhat streaming up offense. I would say right now they're ranked 12th in offensive rating, only averaging 87.6 points a game. So, I mean, it's hard because Washington, on the other hand, they're a high-powered offensive team, but they can't, on the defensive side, they're off. But Chicago, I mean, they just can't get their, offense together to combat Washington's offensive power. And, Washington loves to shoot threes. I think they lead the league in 3-point attempts so far. So, Chicago is going to definitely have to find some offense in this game in order to win. Or other than that, it's all Washington.
All right, so Shorty's got the Mystics. Crystal, how about you? Sticks or Sky?
Do we know if Quigley and Sluter coming back that game or not? Does anybody know?
Haven't heard anything.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything about them playing yet either. I think I'm gonna go with Washington, but I think this is gonna be a really because that's like instant offense for them if they can get it going. But I'm gonna have to go with Washington by maybe like 2 or 3 points, and I'll have to agree with Shorty. I mean, that team lives and dies by the 3, but if it's not on, it's off, and when it's off, it's like way off for them, and they have a hard time playing defense. I mean, you can't try to feed the ball through EDD hoping that she can get everything done for them. You have to have your other 2 main options, which is Prissy Tolliver and Emma Musumin, get touches. I mean, I don't know if you've noticed, but Emma Musumin doesn't get as much touches as she used to now that EDD's in the mix, and it's kind of sad because Musumin was half of the reason why they were still in the mix last year. Especially when you have like 3 of the best scorers on your team, statistically speaking, you have to give Musumin the chance with the ball. But I'm going to say Washington. But the thing with Chicago is, if they don't have Boyette and Dolson play at the same time, I think they could get something going. But we'll just have to see. But I say Washington by like a few points.
And that was the thing that Todd just put in the chat box. Todd said he's going with Washington for that reason. He said Boyette's off to a poor start, hurts them like Washington, as do I like Washington. And as Crystal said, though, Crystal, we saw how this Mystics offense operates. And if they're not making threes, they are really going to be in trouble. But however, those you said, with Chicago somewhat being on that same level, somewhat seesaw, offense not getting in the flow or rhythm, I do like the Mystics here for this one. Next game, guys. Again, only 2 tomorrow, folks. The evening game, Sparks begin their 3-game road trip in Indiana facing the Fever. Tip-off at 4 o'clock p.m. from Bankers Life Fieldhouse. Shorty, what do you got?
I'm going to go with Los Angeles. I mean, it'll be interesting for them. Yes, whatever, Crystal. But it'll be interesting for them. It's their first game on the road, so you want to see the champs and see what they do in their first, road game. They'll be without Sims, but inject Weiss and Williams, so we'll probably see Williams get some more minutes and see what she can do on the floor.
All right, Crystal. Shorty's got LA. How about you?
I'm gonna pick LA, but not because I'm a fan. And I know a lot of people are probably like, well, of course she's gonna pick LA. I'm picking LA because what I saw from Indiana, what they played like 3 games, I think 2 games. Yeah. I can't remember exactly.
Record 1 and 2.
Yeah, what I saw from the 3 games that they played, the last game that they played against Connecticut was their best game. But they're still a pretty young team. They're still trying to get used to the new system with Pokey. Sometimes they have a hard time getting the ball in the basket. They have a hard time containing bigger teams. And LA is a pretty big physical team. And LA can run. They're a big team that's in shape, and I don't know if Indiana will be ready for that kind of um, that kind of playing style yet. So I'm going to pick LA based on that.
Yeah, guys, I'm also going with LA too in regards to that. Obviously, as we said, without them, with Sims being gone, it's one deal. But again, like Shorty said, they can insert Weiss, they can insert Williams into that equation. And also, I think though that with how LA's played through 2 games at least, that second game, of course, was a little bit because they got off to a hot start and somewhat let their foot off the gas in the second half, which allowed the Mystics to climb back into that ball game. And also, I think that with Indiana guys, they still have room for improvement. And I think that right now they're somewhat kind of taking their punches early in the year. Obviously, new coach, new system in place, obviously. So I'm also going to go with LA, but maybe not in a blowout, maybe in a squeaker this time around for LA. And Todd says, going to go with LA because Indiana whooped us up there last year at Vegas Life Fieldhouse. So obviously, maybe some whiteboard material from Brian. I would say, hey, remember when they beat us by a bunch of points last year? So again, we're all going to go with the Mystics and Sparks for tomorrow's game as well. And also, guys, real quick, we do got it for the night. At least as of May 21st, guys, WNBA attendance is up as of 5/21/2017 to 122,782. Largest crowd last week was when the Sparks had ring night against the Mystics. 12,127 were in the building when the Sparks got their 2016 WNBA championship ring. So again, folks, 122,782 as of May 21st for league-wide attendance as a combined total of all 12 teams. Largest crowd last week was 12,127. Sparks versus Mystics, May 19th. 2017 for the attendance report through the games on Sunday. With that, guys, Shorty, we'll go to you. How about your final thoughts on tonight's games? Again, obviously 2 games, 2-point wins, but 2 epically awesome games tonight. What do you got for us looking ahead to tomorrow?
I thought tonight's games were really fun to watch. Came down to clutch plays by both teams, and hopefully tomorrow we'll have some more good action.
So again, KT, 2 games that went wire to wire tonight. Of course, Epiphany Prince, the hero for the night, presumably again game-winning basket with 4.5 seconds left to beat the Mercury, and of course the Lynx grind out a good win over a very young and surging Connecticut team. How about your final thoughts for this evening's night of action?
I thought it was good games. I mean, this honestly, the beginning of the WNBA season is starting to look very exciting, kind of like how I thought it was last year. There's still a lot of games to be played, still a lot of great things to see, and I thought they were great so far tonight.
And guys, as one of our good Twitter followers, WNBA Insider had tweeted out, reminder, no NBA games tomorrow. 2 WNBA games, so be sure to tune in tomorrow. And also, guys, as well, we're going to give it a dry run too, but for those of you that are playing My Squad, sometime this week we're going to have a little competition, I guess, where you can play against us. So, Shorty, Crystal, have your My Squad apps ready. I don't know when it's going to be, but we're going to work on that sometime during the week to kind of see how we do so far through My Squad. Again, I know we've had a lot of good fun so far with that. Shorty, real quick, I know that you tried out FanDuel over the weekend, I think, Shorty. What was your thoughts about playing the FanDuel game for the WNBA? Overall thoughts on that or what?
FanDuel is actually fun. I mean, it's an app where, you have to, use, actual money or at least credit for money and stuff like that. And I won $2 so far on the app. So I'm doing my little picks or whatever. I lost today, which was a bummer because my players didn't come through like I expected. But overall, fun app.
So, hey, Shorty's $2 richer playing FanDuel. Again, folks, for more information on that, and again, folks, we do have one of the RotoWire services following the networks of folks. We will try our best to retweet or send out any information for those that are playing daily fantasy, and of course, we'll have more about that. We may actually, guys, start our own little fantasy show maybe perhaps coming up pretty soon. I'll work on that later on this evening. Maybe a little fantasy 411 maybe coming up here on the network for FanDuel, maybe for for my squad as well. But with that though, folks, 2 great games once more. And again, Liberty over the Mercury 69-67, and the Sun over the Lynx over the Sun, I should say, 80-78. 2 games again tomorrow, folks. 9:30 a.m. Pacific time. Mystics at Sky on NBA TV or on local TV up in Chicago on the U2, or the Sparks and the Sparks and Fever at 4 o'clock Pacific, 7 o'clock Eastern on League Pass, WNBY, or Spectrum Sportsnet for those of you in the Southern California TV markets, folks. With that, for Crystal Thomas and Tanisha Stewart, both up in Los Angeles, this is Cal McClurg from the Calamax Sports Studios in San Diego, signing off for the night. And we'll see you folks back here mañana to recap 2 more games in the WNBA and have more discussion, coverage, analysis from the WNBA coming back here front of the folks. With that, this has been the WNBA 365 Network, folks. Take care and good night. Bye-bye.